From the PEP Radio Newsroom, this is the News Blast for this hour. LGBTQ Nation is reporting that months after removing all mentions of transgender people from its website for the Stonewall National Monument, the National Park Service has removed all mentions of bisexual people, too. Transgender journalist Erin Reed noted that the Stonewall Monument page once said before the 1960s almost everything about living openly as a lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or queer LGBTQ plus person was illegal. The newly revised version says before the 1960s, almost everything about living authentically as a gay or lesbian person was illegal. On the Monument's History and Culture webpage, the statement declaring that Stonewall was a milestone for LGBTQ civil rights that provided momentum for a movement now says Stonewall was a milestone for gay and lesbian civil rights. Additionally, the page once said that living openly as an LGBTQ plus person was a violation of law. It now says that living openly as a member of the Stonewall community, and they misspelled the word community, was a violation of the law. To be clear, no one in the LGBTQ plus community has ever used the phrase Stonewall community. It is a near meaningless phrase that obscures the historical persecution of people for their non-heterosexual sexual orientation and their non-cisgender gender identities and presentations. In response to the erasures, Reed wrote, bisexual, transgender, and queer people were at the forefront of the Stonewall movement. Though the language was still evolving, many of the patrons defied conventional categories of gender and sexuality, refusing to be neatly classified. Erasing them from Stonewall is not only historically false, it is a deliberate act of political revisionism. The recent removal of bisexual from official Pride histories is a warning. Attacks on transgender people will never stop with us, Reed added. They are part of a broader effort to narrow the scope of who is allowed to belong, to be seen, and even to be remembered. In mid-February, the National Park Service removed all mentions of transgender people from its website for the Stonewall National Monument in order to comply with the President's executive orders prohibiting any federal recognition of trans people in any aspect of civic life. Numerous federal web pages began removing all mentions of trans people and gender identity after a January 29th directive from the Office of Personnel Management telling federal agencies to end federal funding of gender ideology in programming, policies, and outward-facing media. The directive reflects Republicans' larger crusade against all diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts by government bodies and private businesses. This is just cruel and petty, New York Governor Kathy Hochul wrote in an ex-post after the National Park Service removed all mentions of trans people from the monument's webpage. Transgender people play a critical role in the fight for LGBTQ plus rights, and New York will never allow their contributions to be erased, she added. The Stonewall Inn and its nonprofit, the Stonewall Inn Gives Back Initiative, said in a statement, this blatant act of erasure not only distorts the truth of our history, but also dishonors the immense contributions of transgender individuals, especially transgender women of color, who are at the forefront of the Stonewall riots and the broader fight for LGBTQ plus rights. Former President Barack Obama designated the site as a national monument in 2016, the first such site dedicated to LGBTQ plus rights. In response to the erasure, thousands of LGBTQ plus New Yorkers have protested at the monument. The National Park Service also told photographer, advocate, and installation creator Stephen Love Mendez that the monument will not display trans or progress pride flags this year, despite doing so in past years. Nevertheless, many New Yorkers and tourists have visited the monument and set up unauthorized pride flags in protest, including smaller trans flags planted in the soil. That's News Blast for this hour. PEP Radio is now available on Alexa. Just tell your device, Alexa, play PEP Radio. You can also listen via the Live 365 app on Roku or on the PEP Radio page at paequality.com. If you are watching our videos on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Up next, we have the Meadville area weather forecast here on PEP Radio.